Be inspired. Sean was diagnosed with autism at 18 months. When it was discovered that he was also gluten and casein intolerant, he was placed on a biomedical diet. After trying a number of the mixes available, Grandma Debbie and her sister Kathy knew they could do better. Something just as healthy, but with improved taste and texture. Inspiration mixes are exactly that, and we'd like to share our delicious creations with you. We're sure you'll love them just as much as Sean does. Bon appetit.
Welcome to Inspiration Mix's gluten-free baking mix company. Today we're going to show you how to make a gluten-free pie crust, one that you can actually roll out. So to get started, we're going to take our baking mix pouch. This mix makes 2 9-inch crusts. You take 2/3 of shortening. I like to use a organic shortening, and I also like to use a dough cutter. Dough cutter or pastry cutter. You can use a fork if you like, but this gives it that pea size that you always want when you're making a pie crust. This is such a wonderful texture. It can also be made vegan. You simply add a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. And if you use an egg replacer, because this mix requires 1 egg, you can either use 2 tablespoons of applesauce, which is equal to 1 egg, or if you use an egg replacer that requires water, the key is to make sure when you add the water, you deduct what you've used in your egg replacer mix so that it doesn't get too soft. So this is how you want it to look. You have that pea size in there, and you just keep doing that with your dough cutter. The next step is going to be to clean this off because we're pretty much there. You can also substitute the shortening for 1/3 cup of butter, 1/3 cup of shortening, or you can either substitute one of those for cream cheese. Makes it a wonderful flaky crust if you can handle the dairy. So there we go. So now we're going to add our liquid. We have 1 egg, a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. We also have a recipe for chicken pot pie. If you make it, I recommend you cut the vanilla down a little bit, make it more of a savory flavor. We have a 1/2 cup of cold water. This is important because, again, when you combine the water and it's cold with the shortening or butter or the cream cheese, you don't want it to melt. Then we have apple cider vinegar. We're going to use a 1/2 tablespoon or 1 1/2 teaspoons. You have 3 teaspoons to a tablespoon. And we're going to mix that in here. I take this, a little whisk, and I whisk it together because you want to make sure that it's all mixed together so all the flavors are incorporated. The egg doesn't get kind of slimy in there. So you have it like that, almost milky texture. Now the next thing we're going to do, we just simply pour this in and stir it. Now you see that we're just going to moisten it. It seems a little liquidy, and it will. Okay, now we have our pie crust ready to go. We're going to take out some plastic wrap because the magic in rolling out any kind of pie crust nicely is it has to be refrigerated for an hour. Even wheat crust you have to do that with. So we're going to simply put it in here, roll it up, take it, kind of flatten it out just a little bit, and it looks like that. And we're going to refrigerate it in an hour, and then I'll show you how to roll out a gluten-free pie crust. Now we're going to do a single pie crust. We're going to fill it with a vegan coconut cream chocolate pie. So to start with, we're going to take the pie crust that we refrigerated. We need a little bit of tapioca flour. We're going to put it down in here like we did. Make sure it's nice and covered. Sometimes I put a little tapioca flour on the roller so it doesn't stick. And you're going to roll it out till it's about 1 inch bigger than your pie pan. Now I'm using a glass pie pan. You can use aluminum or stainless steel. Just keep in mind they do bake a little bit differently. But do what's comfortable for you. In the end, it all tastes great. This is a 9-inch pie plate. I'm just putting it over the top to make sure that I've got that 1 inch. I'm going to move my pie plate close. You can use parchment paper to roll this on and then just flip it over. I like to use my frosting knife, and I pick it up like this and I simply put it in the pan. Now when baking a pie shell, we bake ours at 400 degrees. You want to take a fork and you want to poke holes in the bottom. And the reason that you do that is because there's nothing to hold the pie crust in the pie plate. So this allows the heat to escape and not lift your pie crust out. So you just go around it with a fork. And there you have it. Bake it for 10 to 15 minutes. Be sure to check your oven temperature. Don't want to over bake it. Make sure it completely cools. And in a few minutes, we'll be filling it with that coconut chocolate cream pie filling. So the last piece we want to do is make the edges look nice. So we're going to just crimp it around the outside. It gives a little bit of lift. And then at the end, we're just going to simply crush it in. And it kind of pushes that up and nice. And it makes it look like you crimped it like my grandmother used to do. And there you have it. Okay. We've taken our single crust pie out of the oven. We've let it cool. Be sure to let it cool completely, because if you don't and it's still warm, anything you put in it will create the crust to be soggy. So we let this cool for about 30 minutes. I also made a gluten-free, dairy-free chocolate pudding filling. Now this recipe is on our website under chocolate pie. So after we let this cool, and actually you can actually put this in here when it's warm as long as your pie crust is cool. So we're going to put this in here. It's made with coconut cream, vanilla, a little cornstarch for thickening. Just put it in there like that. Put it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours so it makes sure that the pudding is nice and firm. When you take it out, you can use whipping cream, you can use fresh berries, whatever you want. But there you have a vegan, gluten-free pie. From our home to your kitchen. Bon appetit.